The History of Horses, exploring the evolution and impact of equines. Saturday, April 13th, Pietro had not finished creation, but he was collaborating with another artist and wanted to give him an opportunity to review and/or contribute. So he started doing some sketches for The History of Horses. Alexandria popped her head into the studio. "Pietro, I know you are trying to avoid watching the news, but Iran has fired about 400 drones at Israel. I think you should know about this. So far, their defenses are holding, but things could get bad. Our own ships are involved in knocking down the weapons." Pietro made a mental note to think about a future project to illustrate what World War III might look like. People today don't seem to understand the horrors of World War I, trench warfare, poisonous gas. You could get a taste of it if you paid attention to the war caused by the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, but most Americans don't care. World War III would almost certainly involve nuclear weapons. Pietro thanked Alexandria for sharing this pivotal movement, but now he had to get back to work. He remembered Henri Matisse, 1869 to 1954, had kept painting even when he could feel the earth tremble in his studio because of the explosions nearby during the war. The thought made Pietro smile and wondered how Matisse would have rendered a horse during his Fauvism period. Maybe imagine one or two. Onward! Our journey begins millions of years ago with the evolution of the earliest ancestors of the modern horse, known as the Eohippus or Hydrocothium. These small animals roamed the forest of the world about 50 million years ago. Over time, they evolved into a larger and more robust species, adapting to the changing environments and spreading all across the globe. The early humans must have watched them and in awe dreamed about them, wishing they could somehow put them to use. Fast forward to around 4000 BC, and we witness a pivotal moment in history, the domestication of the horse. This transformative event occurred in the Eurasian steppes, where nomadic peoples forged a profound bond with these magnificent animals. In the early days, this would have been a limited partnership, perhaps to pull a plow. As these Botai and other nomadic peoples worked with horses, they bred in the GSDMC gene, which strengthened the horses' backs, and it became possible to ride them. As domesticated horses began to spread across Eurasia, people quickly realized the people groups with the greatest number of high-quality horses gained access to newfound mobility and power. These animals facilitated trade and communication along ancient routes and would enable the expansion of empires across great territories. And of course, warfare. Societies were mostly tribal. Weapons were bow and arrow, spears, clubs, and flint knives. With the horse, we enter the idea of the cavalry, faster, more maneuverable, the advantage of fighting from high ground. And then, later, the heavy cavalry, chariots, in 3000 BC, and at the same time, bronze daggers in Egypt kept getting longer until they became short swords. Pietro stopped. Horses and weapons would be the foundation to move from tribal to nations, Babylon with the Hanging Gardens, Assyria's great city of Nineveh, Egypt and the Sphinx and pyramids, Persia with Persepolis, the historically mysterious Medes, and then Greece with the Parthenon, and Rome with its aqueducts and colosseums. They all depended on horses that pulled chariots into battle, carried conquerors to victory, and galloped across vast empires, leaving an indelible mark on the annals of history. The horseman was a symbol of power and would remain so until art began to bloom in the 1880s and the steam train, the so-called iron horse, helped usher in even larger empires. On the battlefield, the tank supplanted the chariot as the heavy cavalry in World War I, the most horrible conflict in history to date. Sadly, the world has returned to trench warfare, where by April 2024, being outside of a trench is near certain death, and drones even fly into the fortifications to complete their deadly missions. And 2024 is clearly the year of the drone for warfare, as Iran launched the 400 drones against Israel just yesterday. But this is the story of the horse. And after the fall of Rome, the horse was still preeminent for both travel, farm labor, and warfare. Onward. Most historians point to the fall of the Byzantine Constantinople to the Ottoman or Turkish Empire in 1453 as the end of the Roman Empire. Pietro had heard Alexandria assert that we are still in the Roman era today based on her understanding of the book of Daniel in the Bible. The Ottoman Empire reached its peak under Sultan Suleiman I, or Suleiman the Magnificent. It began to decline after his death in 1566. At the same time, the Turkish Empire was becoming a dominant force to the west. In Spain and Portugal, we enter the age of exploration. Horses once again take center stage. Hidalgos, Spanish and Portuguese explorers of noble birth, were headed to the west to lead expeditions of conquest and discovery, and bringing their horses with them. They established a launching base in the West Indies, a chain of islands surrounded by the North Atlantic Ocean and the Caribbean Sea. European explorers introduced horses to the New World, forever altering the landscapes and cultures of the Americas. The horses that either escaped or were allowed to run wild were Mustangno, which became Americanized as Mustang. In a repeat of history with the nomadic bow tie in 4000 BC, the Native Americans of the plains adopted the horse, became proficient riders, and it completely changed their hunter-gatherer culture. The Mustang and the Native American became go-to topics for painters and authors, and many such examples survive today, such as the prolific work of Charles Marion Russell, 1864 to 1926. Other well-known horse-centric artists include Frederick Remington, 1861 to 1909, the landscape painter Albert Bierstadt, 1830 to 1902, Alfred Jacob Miller, 1810 to 1874, though in truth he is not known for his westerns. January 29, 1886, a German engineer patented the world's first automobile. May 10, 1869, the transcontinental train tracks were completed, linking the east and west coast of the United States. the nearly 6,000 years of humanity depending on horses was coming to an end. With the advent of industrialization, the role of horses evolved yet again. To be sure, horses are in use for some jobs today, such as ranching and crowd control. Today, most people ride for leisure. They also ride in competition. Here, Mid-Journey is trying to imagine an Olympic dressage rider. They also ride for racing. This is Chantal Sutherland, a jockey considered to be horse racing's Danica Patrick. Pietro felt it was becoming time to wind down this campaign, but he wanted to reimagine a few famous examples of equestrian art. A Horse Rearing Up by self-taught painter George Stubbs, 1724 to 1806. A Horse Market by Rosa Bonheur, 1822 to 1899. A female artist, which was rare in the 1800s. Napoleon Crossing the Alps, Jacques Louis David, 1744 to 1825. The 1821 Derby at Epsom, Theodore Géricault, 1791 to 1824. Horse Frightened by a Thunderstorm, Eugene Delacroix, 1798 to 1863. At this point, Pietro had pushed forward till he could go no farther. He knew his next project would be symbolism and conceptual art, but didn't want to think about it right then. So he just climbed into bed. What he didn't know was he was off to a wild, wild set of dreams. In his nightmare, the maniacs in the Russia-Ukraine and Israel-Iran conflicts were out of control and started World War III, and it went nuclear, and all the electronics died. So we had to rely on horses again, and there were all sorts of mutations. Finally, he woke up with a start. Yikes! Alexandria looked at him quizzically. Pietro simply said, "All I am saying is give peace a chance," and fell back asleep again. The end. Ahui ho, and may God bless.